We will start our test review on the Schlieffen Plan. Most of you will remember the major causes of the war, the 5 main causes, and you'll know kind of how this started with all these countries mobilizing. But Britain was not officially in the war via alliance system. It took an event like the Germans going through Belgium with the Schlieffen Plan that really got them upset and got them involved in the war, and then in turn pulled the United States in. Germany supposed right that it would be easier to go through Belgium because there weren't as many defenses up. So that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to go through Belgium, which is a neutral country. Their neutrality is guaranteed by Great Britain, and so they're going to go through, march their troops through, and you're going to see that when they ask, Belgium will say, no, you can't, and Germany will invade in August 1914. And the Belgians do slow down the German army, but that will then be a key turning point in that England will join the war. And it seems that England and the United States are very much in line culturally, politically, and this will eventually bring the United States into the war. Another example of propaganda is a lot of propaganda is going to be used against the British for going through a neutral country. And here are some examples where you can see a young man is being bullied by an older man, and again that's supposed to represent Germany. If you see the sausages hanging down, another remember Belgium. So again, a lot of propaganda is being used to bring public opinion really against the Germans. As we said, the plan doesn't work. Unfortunately, Germany will try the same thing during World War II. The First Battle of the Marne, just to give you a real specific battle example and kind of why this war turns into trench warfare, you see that there are, again, just so many casualties, and the fighting is along the Marne River. And what's going to happen is armies will reach a stalemate, and neither side can advance. And so what they start to do is dig trenches, just like they did at the end of the Civil War in the United States. And so you're going to see mass amounts of casualties, and you will see the military tactics do not match the advanced weaponry. And again, most of you will know, just kind of reviewing some trench warfare, which is going to be the major type of weapon used, or the type of fighting used, is going to be trench warfare. And you're going to see it's really going to be mostly on the Western Front, and you have really inhumane conditions. Here's a picture of a trench, so you can actually see. And then the fighting that would, the actual combat that would happen was people had to go to no man's land, which is between the two trenches, and you were faced with mud, artillery, shell holes, and just barbed wire, sometimes poison gas, and troops were ordered by their superiors to go climb up ladders, typically, and go over the top, and many people were absolutely terrified, and life in the trenches were absolutely horrible and inhumane. Some other examples: poison gas. First time we have chemical warfare. We have the machine gun, especially the tank, that was really new weapons, and then the submarine or the U-boat. Just wanted to show you some pictures of these so you could remember them and also be able to talk about them on the test. Here's a picture of a U-boat. The Germans, did a really good job of kind of advancing this U-boat, but they're going to get into some problems with their policies over unrestricted submarine warfare, which we're going to talk about. They eventually figured out for the airplanes to put the guns on the outside of the propeller, and then here's some example of poison gas. Also, too, the tanks, oftentimes, like I said, they were really new in their infancy. They would often roll off, the tank would actually roll off their tracks, but they will perfect this really by World War II. Understand, this is where we're going to talk about the United States and how the U.S. remained neutral, but the United States was benefiting economically because they were selling war materials to the Allies, specifically the British and the French. And the British government had this awesome blockade against Germany, and the Germans, it was working really well. They were very stressed. They couldn't get a lot of supplies in, and so they decided they had to do whatever they possibly could to end this blockade that Britain was placing on them. And you're going to see that this is going to get the United States involved. A new key term here, Lusitania, is a British passenger ship sailing from New York to England. So yes, there are going to be Americans on board, and they will warn travelers that if it is on, during World War I, if it's on they're going to sink it if they see it. We know today that the Lusitania was smuggling war materials. The passengers didn't necessarily know that, and it's going to be torpedoed and it's going to be sunk. You can see close to 1,200 people are killed, 123 are Americans, and so Americans are outraged, specifically the American government. And you see in America there is anti-German attitudes. Many towns were changed, their names were changed. Certain things like sauerkraut, people wouldn't use that word. Anything associated with Germany or Germans was kind of not really said, and their culture was downplayed. A lot of people didn't even play like Beethoven or Bach. And here's a picture of the Lusitania in New York, and then, oh no, it goes down and it sinks. This was just a huge deal, but if you look at the perspective of Germany, Britain was putting a very effective blockade on them, and they were trying to do whatever they could. In wartime, the United States is really not going to affect this, and so you can see, again, more examples of propaganda you have against these horrible Germans. The United States does not declare war. They demand a German apology, and Germany really tries to do everything they can to bend over backwards for the United States. They did not want the United States to get involved in the war. Germany will make the Sussex Pledge, which we'll talk about. They said they would not sink any more ships without warning, and they will end what is called unrestricted submarine warfare. Now, what that is if you see a ship in the Atlantic Ocean, you're gonna sink it, regardless if it has passengers or what. You want people to stop shipping goods to your enemy, but they will pledge. They don't want the United States to get involved in the war. So again, here's Germany's dilemma. They wanted to keep the United States out, but if they wanted to keep them out of the war, they had to allow for supplies to get to Great Britain, and it's going to make them harder to win the war. If they practice a policy like unrestricted submarine warfare, this would prevent supplies from getting to Britain. Maybe Britain would stop the blockade on Germany, but at the same time, they know this will bring the United States into the war, and Britain will now have to fight another enemy. All right, Germany does some things that aren't too smart. One is the Zimmerman Note. They sent a coded telegram to Mexico, and it proposes an alliance with Mexico. Germany will help Mexico actually reclaim land. Most of you don't know this because you haven't got an opportunity to study U.S. history, but the United States took a whole heck of a lot of land from Mexico unjustly. We declared war on them in 1846, really for the benefit of taking land, and the southwestern part of the United States and California really was taken from Mexico. So Germany's saying, hey, if you help us, we're going to help you get your land back that the United States sold. So the British, they intercept and decode the telegram, and it's published in U.S. newspapers, and Americans are outraged, and they demanded action. So this was kind of an oops moment. And here's the telegram that caused so much problems. And you can see here is a cartoon of Germany, of a German soldier talking to a Mexican. Hey, help us join Germany, and we'll help you get part of the United States that was yours. So you're going to see many things are going to get the United States, like the resuming of unrestricted warfare, the Zimmerman telegram, and the United States will declare war. They'll join the Allied powers. But Woodrow Wilson is going to tell Americans, and he really is going to be convinced that the United States is fighting in World War I to make the world safe for democracy. If you think back to the causes of World War I, it had nothing to do with democracy. But the people of Europe really liked what Wilson said. Unfortunately, when he gets to Versailles in France, and he actually tries to negotiate the peace treaty, all the other leaders are like, who is this American? And they don't listen to him. So his ideals are not going to be matched with the leadership of Europe. So the United States will get involved, and they will declare war. And here's where we're going to make the connection back to Russia. You should know so much about the Russian Revolution. You know that Russia was losing the war. The people are broke, starving, and freezing. And there's protests. And a lot of people don't like Tsar Nicholas. And he's going to abdicate the throne in the March Revolution. And the new government, led by Kerensky, the provisional government, will continue the war. And then that allows for Vladimir Lenin, who is allowed to come back to Russia with the help of the Germans, because they thought, hey, let's take this guy Lenin back, and then he's pledging that he will get Russia out of the war. We like this guy, we'll send him back. He's going to lead the Bolshevik Party, and he is going to be the first one to try to experiment with Karl Marx, from his Communist Manifesto, and now we have the November Revolution. He promises the people bread, peace, and land. It's, most historians say it was a good idea to definitely get Russia out of the war. They take control of the government. They made peace with Germany. They drop out of the war. Here's a picture of Lenin speaking. And let's just look at the impact. They drop out of the war. They surrender a large area of land to Germany and Austria-Hungary. It allows Germany to send troops to the Western Front. Understand, they made this peace treaty with Germany, so they didn't make it with the Allies. They just wanted to get out of the war. So now Germany is fighting a one-front war. The impact on history, you can see the Romanov family there. Now it's going to start this huge civil war, as you guys know, which will last until 1922. The Tsar and his family are arrested and murdered, and we have the first communist nation in the world. And again, for those of you that didn't pick this up on the map, it is going to be the southwestern part, a little bit, below Moscow. This land will be surrendered to Russia. The Soviet Union under Stalin will try very hard, and they will get this land back. But now you're going to see the United States will send what they call, a lot of people call them doughboys, kind of based on how they were dressed. They were called the AFE, and they were led by John G. Pershing. And the U.S. troops were welcomed by cheering crowds. But understand, the United States and the soldiers really did make a huge, huge impact. So many of these soldiers had been fighting for years, and they were exhausted. But here in the United States, they're fresh, they're ready to go. And you will see that after World War I, the United States becomes a creditor nation because everybody owes us money. Germany does have one last chance. They launch a major offensive on the Western Front, but they're only fighting a one-front war, and they're trying to do this quickly before the Americans are really ready to go. They are trying to drive the forces past towards Paris, and they're going to end trench warfare in the stalemate. So the war does finally quickly move. Here is their spring offensive that you can see there, but their attack is halted. Their troops are exhausted, running low on supplies, and the Allies hold outside of Paris. We have the Second Battle of the Marne, and the Allies will counterattack. And so you can see, here we go, here's the German offensive, and then we're going to have a counterattack. Here's some more pictures you can see. This is before the German offensive, this is after, and then this is the Western Front where Germany surrenders. It's going to be pushed back, and then we're going to have, as you know, the end of the war, and the Central Powers will collapse. Here are the Central Powers. You can see the Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicates the throne, flees to Holland, and a new German government is founded, and they agree to an armistice or a ceasefire. The problem is, as most of you know from your unfolding, that this treaty that's written and officially signed will pretty much blame absolutely everything on Germany. It will include a war guilt clause, which makes Germany pay for, again, reparations, which are payments to the winning powers, the Allied powers, and these payments wouldn't have been completed until 1999. Remember, this is like 1918. And it puts Germany in such a horrible economic conditions that it allows for a really strong dictator to take power, and you know who that is Adolf Hitler. So Woodrow Wilson, his ideas are not really listened to, but the people of Europe loved his ideas because Woodrow Wilson was talking about, let's make the world safe for democracy, let's allow for people to have self-determination. What that means is that, like, say you are a Serb and you want to have your own country called Serbia, you can do that. And he's going to ask for the end of imperialism. But unfortunately, all these countries, their leadership, after fighting this long war, they want revenge. They want revenge not only on Germany, but on anybody. And they want to take over German lands. So you see imperialism will still continue. So the problem with World War I is the causes of the war are not really addressed at all at the end of the war. It is still a time for nationalism and imperialism. There's still going to be alliances. So it's like the leadership didn't wake up. Woodrow Wilson had a good idea, but he seemed to be ahead of his time. His idea for peace was a League of Nations, which the United States isn't even going to join, and nobody really follows it. And we know that today as the United Nations. So he seemed to have a good idea, but right after World War I, the people and the leadership were not really ready for a major change, and we will see World War II really shortly after this war, just 2 decades later.